So yeah, speaking of shit champions, have you been keeping up with Vel'Koz? Have you played it since last time we spoke?
Honestly, like if whenever I played it, it was mostly in the support position, just as a substitute. Because I enjoy playing Vel'Koz more than the Xerath. In the cases where, like for example, if the enemy team was picking Renata, I have Jhin AD or something like this, where there are champions that the enemy has range supports, and you just add a little bit of extra range, and then you are playing outside of their pocket, and you kind of have a free lane, and you're just kind of playing whack-a-mole, and you're just waiting to land your spells to kind of win the lane. Other than that, not much Vel'Koz that has been. I don't know how beneficial, like since we spoke, like the addition of some items. Has the champion gotten better over the times, or has it gotten worse?
Not
What you
really.
tell me?
It didn't get much better. No, especially mid lane is pretty much for solo queue it's dead. In competitive, I think mid lane is really good.
Mm.
But for solo queue, is just you're gonna be basically holding on to the 50%. Every game is just gonna funnel you towards 50%. Whether you hard win or hard lose, it doesn't matter that much because you mostly depend on other four players. Which is why when I want to climb, I play support mostly.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. Yeah,
so
I feel
yeah.
like you can get away with less gold on Vel'Koz. I
Oh,
feel
for
like
sure. You
that
scale with levels incredibly well. You don't really need that much AP. Your passive damage is really good. So you build that utility, movement speed. You run around the map. Yeah, there's a very, very good support playstyle, which is I was surprised that people were surprised that Heimer and Ashe and all of those champs worked really well in bot lane. Because I was playing Vel'Koz support in that exact way, that high pressure, not only on your lane but on the entire map. You're playing vision control by damaging enemies, by zoning them out, and creating space for your team to play good macro, to have better decision making, obviously, because they have more vision. They can play dragons, objectives. You can, and also that in solo queue it helps that you have that aspect of you can pick where you go. If enemies have a clear weakness, you can choose to attack it. If you're mid, you're mostly stuck dealing with the waves.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, like it was. Yeah, I think that the crazy thing about like the Heimerdinger is like the moment they locked it in, like we hadn't seen it before, but I instantly told my players, it's like he's going to queue whenever you queue forward with the Nautilus, and you're going to hate your life. So
Yeah.
you cannot queue in. We need to. They're going to place Taurus level one on bot. We can fight them level one there, where we just go five into the bush, and then we have sweep on mid, and then if they don't place a ward, we can just swap back to ward trinket, so we get level two advantage, blah blah blah, and this is what we did. And then when we saw it in action, where it's just like I played a lot of Heimerdingers. Like sometimes I go on these I want to call them hikes, but like for the lack of the better word, I go on these hikes where I just play 50 games with some champion that nobody plays. So I had all the Heimerdinger tricks down, and it just like everything just clicked. It's like, oh shit, this support champion is going to be. There's some champions where you just know this champion has a shit ton of potential, but no one had the guts to like pull it off and to like every time anyone played against those Heimerdinger one tricks, it's like you play jungle, you can't fucking gank that shit. It's fucking pushing all the
The
time. There's
movement
third
speed is so
the
underrated.
move, the move speed is mental. It's absolutely crazy the move speed that you're getting, and always when you interact with those champions, like it was very frustrating, and you could feel the power and the presence of that champion, the potential of it, and I think this World Championship with Heimerdinger coming in, I think it was super super cool, and I think the same thing with Vel'Koz in a way where it's just the passive in essence is very unique, giving you true damage, which is something that is a very rare source of damage in the game. I think there are definitely moments where you just get one shot by Vel'Koz and you're like, what the fuck just happened? It's like, Jesus Christ, he hit an E and then all of a sudden the game is fucking broken in half. Like there is definitely an element of that when it comes to Vel'Koz as a champion for sure. That's why
I
I prefer Vel'Koz over Xerath. I don't think Xerath falls in that same box for me because
I agree. Xerath is quite a bit. He's straightforward. He's like a more simple version of Vel'Koz. When you're playing Xerath, it's mostly like playing first-person shooter. You're just aim, shoot. If you're good at aiming, that's it. With Vel'Koz, there's a lot more nuance with the sort of mind games that you can run and the control that you can. Like he's technically an artillery mage, but the amount of control you can do in team fighting is just absurd. And I wanted to ask you, like, because you were one of the rare coaches who actually was very interested about Vel'Koz, and you talked to me about that. And I wonder why I have my own guesses, but why a lot of players and a lot of teams don't are hesitant to pick up Vel'Koz as a mid laner, because I think his competitive value far outweighs the solo queue.
Yeah, I think what I found was the most interesting about Vel'Koz was just how easy it was to manage waves if you wanted to, with how strong your W is with 2 marks. And honestly, like the main point of inspiration for us was back then, it's like we were scrimming Invictus Gaming 2018 at Worlds, and basically he was picking Vel'Koz into Rise, and this is also where we were talking the last time when Rise was coming back up, and Rise was in the meta, and then in my mind I went in that direction too. It's like Rise needs to take some element of risk in order to play in Vel'Koz's pocket, and he needs to play for the wave. Vel'Koz can also play for the wave, and there's always going to be that element of risk that Rise needs to play around, and Vel'Koz is going to be rather comfortable. I think especially now when ranged, like the melee supports are less prevalent, meaning there's not like a Nautilus ult or a Nautilus Q or a Leona ult in every single game. I feel like there is room for Vel'Koz to do better. I think in cases where there is not that many tools of hard engage and Vel'Koz has a composition built around him that it covers for his weakness, where if Vel'Koz is ever late for an objective, that there is actually like room for him to maneuver himself without getting flanked by a Fiora and a Kali, then I think this is definitely a champion with potential, because I think when everything lands, which is not that difficult to do if you have some essence of setup where you just hit your E, I think that Vel'Koz definitely has a lot of potential. And I think the main thing for me, the main selling point for me was just how easy it is to manage the wave with W. And I think that you could get yourself out of tough positions within the lane where you're forced to trade very actively. With the use of clever W, and this is something that I noticed with seeing your play pattern. And I remember the games that I played, I think I was playing against like Aurelia or some shit, or like Zed, and these are not champions that you see that often in competitive. There's not a lot of players that have the guts to pick these. I could see myself seeing a strong Vel'Koz player pick it into the likes of maybe Orianna or Ryze, and these are champions that are definitely frequently picked. Or like there was even, I remember there was like a Lissandra blind pick. I could see Vel'Koz.
Exactly. During that meta, when we saw nothing but Azir, Corki, and Orianna, I was so surprised no team had the guts to pull out Vel'Koz. I mean, he does require a little bit of bar of entry. You need to be kind of familiar with the champion in order to pull something out of it. Because if you just play him a little bit, he's just a basic skillshot character. But it's like Ziggs, fairly easy to dodge. Like, good players will avoid you. But if you take it one step forward, you can get to a point where you can deal with any player on the planet, as long as you're good at it. And not to mention the space you can provide in team fighting. I think this is just one of the big selling points for me is, well, competitive revolves a lot more about fighting near objectives. In solo queue, it's a lot more skirmishing. And fighting near objectives is something Vel'Koz does phenomenally well. With really good perpendicular angles, you can cut off the team fights in two and split them up and absolutely just control. And we saw this. My good friend Navkela he picked it, and he was dominating his games. He's a best mid laner in Montenegro. He played Vel'Koz. We saw GL Knight Vel'Koz, I think, in German league as well. Every time Vel'Koz has been seen, he performed reasonably well, apart from some exceptions, I guess. But even now, I think his win rate in competitive is positive. And I believe, honestly, like, trying to be objective as a league player, not like a Vel'Koz player, I think in 10 to 15% games, he could be a very, very good mid laner in competitive.
For sure, when Vel'Koz holds, it's like there's this essence that every mage, like the dream of every mage character wants to be in that position where you can't be flanked and the enemy wants to break your position. And I believe that Vel'Koz is very strong in those spots. It's like if you're in a position that